While many of South Africa's ultra-high net worth individuals are looking more closely at going global with at least a portion of their investment portfolio, there are a number of sound reasons for taking a wider view of the global investment universe. CEO of Stonehage South Africa, Johan van Zyl, joins us now to discuss the why and how of investing globally. And perhaps let's just start right there, Johan. Is this the time that we should be looking aggressively to offshore markets, to diversify the offerings that we have available to us?
Well, Bronwyn, that's always the big question. And the question we face with our clients is, when is the right time? And they're constantly looking at the rand, which we all know is very volatile. So what we say to them is, don't try and pick your time, rather pick a long-term strategy, pick a target of assets that you want to invest abroad, and then periodically or systematically look to invest offshore. So you average in or average up with the exchange rate.
Johan, the rand should never be in a reason to go offshore. It should be because the valuations of the particular stocks or the particular geographies are attractive relative to the local market. And I haven't met one fund manager in the last couple of years that hasn't got his or her 25% that they're allowed out of South Africa. But when it comes to the high net worth individuals, which we're focusing on here, do you have a different strategy to someone that's got 100 million to someone that's got 5 million? In other words, do you get more sophisticated? Does more money mean more sophistication and more ability and willingness to take on risk?
It really depends, Lindsay, on the particular individual or family, and it will depend on liquidity as well. How much liquid capital do they have to invest offshore? They might have a private business, so a lot of their capital is tied up in that business. But I think once you do get to a certain level, it does become more complex, but equally your opportunity set widens significantly.
Tsepo, let's bring you in here.
Look, I agree with a lot of the points that Johan was pointing out. I think a key consideration as well is where offshore, and I think that's the I guess the risk is people look at offshore and they think Europe and the US. So I'm just curious, a lot of your clients, Johan, do they have a actually holistic view of offshore? Do they focus on Africa as an example? Is there a demand for investments in the continent, Asia? We know that performance hasn't been so flash in the Asian markets over the last little bit, but is that also a focus area for your clients?
It is, but it's very small in their portfolios at this stage. A lot of investors are looking at Africa, but it's early days, so many of them are just taking a watching brief. So we try and get a global spread for our clients. We'll look at developed markets, but we do believe that there is a fundamental shift from the developed markets to the emerging markets. However, we have a very interesting situation at the moment, which was touched on earlier, with the quantitative easing and the funds that have flowed in there. So one's got to be cautious. You don't want to necessarily pile into it. You've got to be very careful.
Nerina, you were alive on Twitter earlier. I saw it coming, taper, not to taper, yes, no, where are we going? So what was the conclusion of that wildfire debate I saw emanating from you?
I think it was very much a case of taper is going to happen sooner or later. And when it happens, it will spook markets. So what do we do about it? And I think the conclusion really is that do expect this, but see it as an opportunity, especially if the markets contract or fall a little or a lot. See it as an opportunity to increase your positions. You've got to remain invested. Don't be scared of tapering. It is going to come, but use it as an opportunity to invest. So, following on maybe from what Tsepo was saying in terms of where do your clients invest, I'd be interested to know in why do they invest offshore? Do they have different reasons? If we know that it shouldn't be about the rand, what are their motivations and how do they look at that question in particular?
I think the number one motivation...
Well, let me ask you this question now, Nerina, if I can. If you, let's say that you've got 100 million rand and you've suddenly got this 100 million and you say, I want 25 million of that to go offshore because I'm allowed to have 25 million. Do you say to yourself, well, the rand keeps on bashing its head against 1020, 1030, 1040. Therefore, I think the rand has reached its nadir. It's not going to go any lower than this, but I still want to go offshore because I think the valuations of the stocks that I've picked are very attractive. Do you therefore say to yourself, well, I'm going to hedge myself with my 25 25 million by using currency derivatives to offset the potential rally in the rand. So you might get the rally in the rand which offsets the rally in the assets that you've just bought into. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the rand could actually offset your gains in the individual stocks.
Sure, it can. And I don't want to answer on behalf of Johan, but I would say that's exactly why I'm saying, why do you invest offshore? If the why is about valuations, as you say, or more importantly, maybe about diversification, getting exposure to assets that you can't find in your home base, then the currency question becomes a lot less relevant. And if anything, the currency might actually serve as an additional return on top of the investment that you're doing offshore. Because when we think of the rand, we tend to think of it as the rand dollar, but of course the rand also has many other crosses. So I don't know.
Well, there we go, because you were trying to ask a question to Johan, and then Lindsay came in and sideswiped you and took it away. So now, go back to your question with Johan, and
So
Lindsay, please stand down.
So the why do they invest offshore? The number one reason is diversification. So there's no free lunch in investing except diversification. and
There was a big thumbs up from Nerina Visser on a wide shot. Again, Nerina, let's see the thumbs up.
I was looking for that little paddle from the fundamental technical show where I've got the tick mark that says yay.
and I think another interesting fact is in global terms, so once you reach a certain level of wealth in global terms, dollar terms, South Africa represents a very small opportunity set. The total market capitalization of the JSE only represents 1% of the global equity market. So if you do have wealth in global terms, you need to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right, so now let's look at what and where, because you know we talk about this offshore globally and it's a very, very big place. So can we be a little more focused in terms of what we should be looking at when we go offshore?
Well, we like equities, but again, you should have a balanced portfolio. So we like large global companies that have a broad exposure to emerging markets.
So you like multinationals?
We like multinationals. So we like ones that are going to pick up the growth of emerging markets, but you have developed market governance. You can trust the management teams. The reporting is good. So you feel comfortable giving them your money. You feel safe. But equally...
i.e. SAB Miller.
That would be a very
JP
good
Morgan.
example.
Not JP Morgan, that was from Nerina Visser.
But SAB is a very good example. But what's great about the global opportunity set is that you have other brewers that you can look at as well. So in South Africa, because of the opportunity set being limited on the JSE, our local portfolios will hold SAB Miller, but our international ones won't. We'll look at a company like Anheuser-Busch InBev, which is a great brewing company. And just gives you a different mix of economies that they're exposed to, consumers that they're exposed to, slightly different management style as well.
So finally, Johan, I mean, it's very simple actually. I'm going to give up broadcasting in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to give my notice in. You just buy companies with strong balance sheets that pay dividends, that have good management and that are good dividend payers as well, and also are prominent in various geographies around the world. It's as simple as that. It's Nestle, it's SAB Miller, maybe it's even Naspers, maybe it's even Aspen Pharmacare. It's not a difficult business, is it?
Do you think he should give up his day job, Johan?
Well, it's not as simple as that,
Night job.
unfortunately. But we think that should form a core of your equity holding in a portfolio. But the value managers have really come of age in the last 12 months. So for many years, they were lagging the quality global companies. And now suddenly, over a period of 12 months, since November last year, they've really caught up in performance terms when you look at the 3-year and 5-year numbers. So we think those global companies have a position in a portfolio, but it's not as simple as that, Lindsay.
Johan, thanks so much for your time.
Damn.
CEO of Stonehage South Africa, Johan van Zyl. That's